Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy StumpD back for the OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at some more Pirate Rumble teams, and in today's video, we're breaking down my top 5 best attacking teams, and stereotypically what you would actually come up against. Couple of different options for you guys, touching on how good they are and stuff like GP, but mainly regular attacking Rumble. I do want to make that very, very clear. This sort of top 5 and sort of honorable mentions and whatnot are mainly for attacking based teams. Obviously, I'll talk about defending a little bit, but defending is in its own right in terms of like mind games of like 6-man teams and obviously catering towards what's being boosted at the moment, which we'll definitely touch on there as well. But like I said, this is sort of talking about my top 5 best attacking teams within the meta at the moment. I'm going to talk about the best team that I think for said category or color or like type and what characters I think make the main lineup, and then we're going to talk about some options that you might see stereotypically, what to face, what not to face, and then some sub options mainly for stuff like GP. But if you enjoy this kind of stuff, belt the like button for me. If you're new to the channel or you haven't done so already, hit the big red subscribe button. If you disagree or you agree, just remember this is my personal opinion. Obviously, this is subject to note that investments obviously hinder how good units are in Pirate Rumble as well. So this is just sort of my testing, playing the game for a very long time, enjoying Pirate Rumble, playing GP and stuff like that as well. Like I said, if you agree, let me know in the comment section below. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know in the comments as well what your favorite Pirate Rumble team to run is. And with that said, let's dive in. Alright, so before we dive into my top 5, I do want to give 4 honorable mentions to very, very good teams. The first team is this team you see right here at the top. It is the Free Spirit-centric team. Straw Hat Crew is honestly one of the best, if not the best, Pirate Rumble unit. Absolutely fantastic for strength and dex, giving 6 speed, 3 defense, and level 2 speed up for Free Spirit characters. Unfortunately, the rest of this team is not strength or dex, and that's what makes them quite wonky. However, the fact that they revive, their special gives a 100% chance haste to Free Spirit characters. You have healing with Kinemon Denjiro as well as Ace Sabo, and then big damage with Odin and Yamato. As for other options, you have like Rebecca Toy Soldiers. They work great as a bench unit if you wanted to run a 6-man team. This team works amazingly well for defense wins. Because Free Spirits can just be so sporadic with that haste ability. The healing is quite nice, and Odin and Yamato with the half stats can pop off. The next team I want to note is actually floating around very heavily at the moment with the Pirate Rumble rules, and that is the Fighter team. Fighters have had such a high resurgence with stuff like King and obviously PvP Garp as well. But the core lineup that I usually see or I usually run is always Katakuri 6+ with his level limit break 5. Who's Who, because the whole team is powerhouse. Ulti is absolutely fantastic. Marco's great for healing. And this sort of 5-man team with something like King on the bench or another unit for nuking, like Whitebeard's another fighter unit, works very, very well for defensive options. You have Jack, you have Jinbei, level limit break 5 as well. They're other very, very good options. Next team we have is another team that's floating around at the moment due to the Pirate Rumble abilities and buffs and the 6+ of Chopper. The shooter team is actually going absolutely berserk. It's so strong defensively. You have half stats with Yasop and Usopp. You can use something like 6+ Boa and her level limit break as well. This Kizara off the bench works very, very well. However, this team is very heavily boosted under the stats at the moment where shooters are actually getting a lot of buffs as well as Psy units. So Kuzan is actually going absolutely AWOL. The final team is this strength kind of build. Strength, honestly, don't even make my top 5, but this team is probably my most honorable mention alongside the Strength Striker team. Strength Strikers pretty much only go up against like budget dex teams, and even still, they're kind of dookie, but this team right here plays directly into RNG. Boa and Sandersonia work incredibly well. Boa mainly because her ability can give level 5 defense and HP buff to strength, but then her special, as you guys can see there, she'll also do a 30% chance to action bind, as well as 30% chance to confuse. And if you're versing stuff like Dex, or using this as a bait team for Dex units, it can actually work very well with Kid off the bench. You get the haste ability from Straw Hat Crew, who are buffing this whole team, because Ace is Free Spirit, as well as Boa and Sandersonia being Free Spirit as well. Sandersonian gives you so much cooldowns, and like you can just spam Jack specials, which is great for HP cutting and great for defense. So they're my 4 honorable mentions. Let me know in the comment section below which team you stereotypically like to run the most as either your defensive team or you think is the best out of the 4. Honestly, that strength team I have seen has been doing very, very good. This shooter team, no one's really fighting it anymore because it's so defensive based. The free spirit team's always been super fun, and this fighter team has had such a resurgence that it is incredibly strong. So be very, very careful of these teams if you are finding them as defensive options. At number 5, we have the Slasher team. So the bottom row is going to be the team that I'm talking about, and this team at the top here is the team that we're going up against. Now, like I said at the start, we are going to talk about stereotypical teams that you guys see and where these teams shine the most. Now, Slashers are still absolutely fantastic. They've been so good ever since Roger and Odin. But obviously they have come and gone since like Enel's release and stuff like that. But with Whitebeard and Roger, this unit right here, in my opinion, is the best Pirate Rumble unit in the entire game. They give level 5 HP and attack to Slashers, and then they give a speed buff to Psy and Int units. Now, Kizaru is the only unit on this team that's getting that. Remember, dual units don't actually get that buff. However, Whitebeard and Roger, when they use their special, will just kill 2 units. If you have this unit, you probably want to try and use posters on them, get them up to level 150 as quickly as possible, because this Slasher team basically just beats any 5-man team. At the moment, shooters are going absolutely brazy, so I did want to talk about the shooter build first. It's normally a 5-man team, it's sometimes a 6-man team, but with Whitebeard and Roger, you just come in, you do a 30% HP cut, and then you do 2 times their attack, which ignores defense for 2 enemies. You basically just kill 2 enemies, which is actually disgusting. You also have a 50% chance to cleanse attack and speed buffs on your crew. And then with Kizaru, as you guys can see there, he gives 6 speed to slashers and shooters, level 4 special CT, and I think that actually gets higher with his level limit break. He also gives level 7 attack for 24 seconds, and his special goes down to like 15 seconds. Cracker also gives cooldowns, which is absolutely amazing. He does very good damage. He gives crit up as well. Plus, when your HP is below 50%, he reduces 24% of special cooldown to himself. At level 150 and with his level limit break, he's very, very good. And then you've got Odin and K-Dad. Now, Odin boosts strength as well as slashes. He gives HP and speed. So K-Dad is actually insanely good. You could put one of these guys in the middle because they have more HP. But these guys do so much damage. And then you can just run something like Broly or Brogy. I know his name's Brogy, but I call him Broly because he's such a beast. Or the new King. This new King's really, really good because you're getting the buff from strength from Odin. So this King obviously is just like a 20 cost kid, and it does absolute bits. K-Dad does so much damage too, and when a Kazuki Odin is on the crew, you get a level 5 attack and defense for 20 seconds, which is quite nice to help tank. As I mentioned, this shooter team is going around. Frankie gives absolute crazy defense. You get half stats with with Usopp and Yasop. But basically, Whitebeard and Roger will just kill 2 of these units. Another stereotypical team that has been going around at the moment is the fighter-based team. Again, Whitebeard and Roger will just kill 2 units. However, any team that is 7 or 8 man, you ideally don't really want to fight anyway, but Slashers will struggle because once their specials go off, they don't have a lot of defense, and you can bet your ass you're probably going to die. So the fighter team, like I said, the fighters and shooters have been going off recently, but this particular Slasher team has no issues whatsoever taking them down. Another stereotypical Dex team that is going around, this team actually does very, very well against, looks a little bit like this. I have been seeing different combinations of it. Sometimes there's Pell in the front, and then there's like Dofi in the back. You can also see like 8-man. If you see an 8-man Dex team, I would highly recommend not fighting it. But as I mentioned, with Whitebeard and Roger, if you see a 5 to 6-man team that isn't Psy, you are going to be in good stead as long as Whitebeard and Roger kill the right units. The final team I am going to mention is the Psy team that you actually can take down. However, you really want to be careful of Rebecca Toy Soldier and Enel. If Enel's on the team and Rebecca Toy Soldier's there, or if Rebecca Toy Soldier's in this final slot and Enel's here, I definitely would not take it on. But I just wanted to note that you actually can beat the Psy team with slashes. You just got to make sure, obviously, they're a 5-man team. If they're rocking anything like 7 and above, like, you do want to be very, very careful. So slashers get my top 5 spot. They're very, very good. And if you do have Whitebeard and Roger, I would highly recommend investing in them, because they are absolutely amazing. Not only that, but slashers are so good in Grand Party. In Grand Party, I do have this extra tab for you guys too. In Grand Party, obviously, you have to take into consideration your GP burst and your GP ability, and slashers are probably the best team for GP, because with all the extra buffs they get and the amount of cooldowns they have, they do so much damage. Plus, Roger is still, and Whitebeard Roger are still the best GP leaders, so both of these units can work exceptionally well. Normally, I will, like, whether I'm using Whitebeard Roger or if I'm using Roger as my GP leader, I would always have this slasher team. However, you have a bunch of different options here as well. If you want to build out like a strength slasher team with like K-Dad, Odin, if you don't have stuff like Whitebeard and Roger, you can use like Law and Karku and Toki. It works quite nicely to help take down dex-based teams as well. You have some side options here with Roger and Odin. Obviously, if you run Roger, though, you lose Whitebeard Roger. And honestly, if you don't have Whitebeard Roger, I probably wouldn't run the team to its fullest degree. Other options you have for Int, you have Dofi, you have the Giants. They're great nuking options off the bench. They're both slashers. And then you have this kind of Dex build. Now, Dex is still very, very strong, and you can easily just put Luffy on the team as well. But for GP, especially under Roger, Brook is very, very good. Dalton is very, very good. Pell is amazing. This Zora is a great option if you don't have K-Dad. And then the Cat-Dog combination works amazingly well if you want to take down stuff like Quick. Plus, Moria is another very, very good option there. You can build out like a slasher Dex team and then just put Whitebeard and Roger on it, and you're pretty much good to go from there. Also, Carrot Wonder, they're another very good option. And you actually also have the Redhead Pirate Shanks Crew. Shanks Crew is really, really good if you want to do some defensive shenanigans. Also, you can use Carrot as well. But as I mentioned, this slasher team is the one that I actually rock the most, especially when I see like these baity teams that are trying to play with the rules for the Pirate Rumble Championship or the blocks. Mainly the championships, but mainly like also for blocks. Like I said, I'm rocking this slash team pretty much to take down this big old shooter team as well as this fighter team. But like I said, once you start seeing like the 7th and 8th units or on fighters, if you guys see this Donjin Jiao, what's his name? Is it Don? Is he just gonna come up if we go? I know he's a powerhouse fighter. Not that. That's Garb. If you see this Donjin Jiao, be very, very careful, and I highly recommend avoiding him, because he actually goes very, very quickly, and he can special bind your units there. So, like I said, Slashers take the 5th spot. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Coming in at spot number 4 is the quick driven, HP cutting, and fixed damage-based team. It looks a little bit like this. It has Shiki's level limit break 5 on it. He gives HP buffs to Dex, Quick, and Int, but obviously this team is all Quick-centric. And then for the last 80 seconds, he gives an at level 8 attack buff to himself. Mainly, he's sort of here just because he's a very, very good HP buff. I think that actually gets higher with level limit break, though. I might be incorrect there, but let me know in the comment section below. Deals 3,000 fixed damage to a large sideways range. He gives defense down to enemies in a large sideways range as well. And he has a chance of action binding as well. This Conjuro, the PvP Conjuro, he's also a fixed damage dealer at 3,000. He can paralyze. He gives level 6 speed and crit up to driven and striker units for 20 seconds. He gives you a defense buff at the start of the fight for driven units only, and strikers, but for this team, only the driven. And then if you're above 60% HP, you get a level 2 CT buff. Then you've got the GOAT Fujitora. Now, this Fuji is so good for driven teams, mainly the quick driven, as well as the int driven team, which we will talk about in a little bit later. He's special on a 29-second cooldown, gives level 5 defense and guard to driven for 15 seconds, which is such a disgustingly strong defensive combination. He deals 2.2 times his attack and 2 enemies with the highest attack 2 times, and his passive gives level 6 speed and defense up to driven. For the first 30 seconds, you also get CT buff to himself, which means he will usually pop his special off first. You get that disgusting defensive buff, and it works very, very nicely. Next, we've got Versa Kainu. Now, Versa Kainu is here as a attack buff and a defense buff, and for the first 20 seconds of battle, he gets level 5 C to himself and attack buff to himself. The idea here is for his HP cutting. For the first 40 seconds, he's a 30% HP cutter, which is disgusting when you get your fixed damage dealers coming in after, because he is a CT booster to himself. And then finally, we have more CT boosting with Tesoro. At level limit break 5, he's like a level 7 CT, and at level limit break 5, that's 3,500 fixed damage, not 1,200 that you guys see there. I'm not sure why that actually brings it up as 12. That's just him regularly. He also gives level 7 defense buff to the crew in a medium range as well. You then have some very good nuking options. You've got Smoothie off the bench, which works great. Whitebeard that works great off the bench. And then you've just got the new King. This new King is going to be an absolute pest. Be very careful when you see him, because he's just going to come in. And if he comes in with his special, he's going to absolutely tear you up. Now, some teams that this team goes very, very well against. I have sort of built out some teams. And ideally, you kind of want to try and find strength-centric teams. Now, The first team I put up here is this fighter build. Now, fighters, again, they're running around like an absolute A-train, but this team actually works insanely well against them because Jack's a strength unit, Who's a strength unit, Ulti's a strength unit, and so is King. So Akainu does so much damage against strength units at 1.5 times his attack, and then 2 times to everyone in a large radial range. But you do have to be careful of Katakuri. Katakuri is the glue to the fighter team, but after you get your HP cutting off, and then you have all your defensive buffs, and then you do your fixed damage, usually this team will get whittled down. You do have to be careful of Donjin Jiao, though. As I mentioned, he's very, very annoying. And with some strong bench options, like Dory, if you're seeing an 8-man team, you do have to be very, very careful when you are coming up against fighters. If it is a 6-man team, go for gold. Like, you're just going to tear it up. However, whenever you're versing fighters, just be very, very careful. Because they are getting a massive resurgence, and strength fighters right now, because of the rule, especially strength fighter strikers like Jack, are popping off like absolute AWOLs. But even still, Jack is still a fantastic unit with or without the rules. Next team, obviously, if you see this sort of strikery build, anything strength, as I mentioned, you are going to absolutely tear a new one in. No matter what it looks like, Akainu is basically going to tear it up. Like, it's not even fair. If you see strength, just bring Akainu and you will be absolutely fine. This is a stereotypical strength team that I do tend to see, that I have built myself. But it's not the one that's going around at the moment. It's more that sort of free spirit-centric build. Next, we've got the free spirit-centric build, as I mentioned. You do have to be careful with this one because this one is an 8-man team. And 8-man teams are a lot stronger than your stereotypical 5 to 6-man teams. There's no Kid on this, though, so you could probably stereotypically see this with Kid on the bench as a defensive option instead of King. But I wanted to include, like, 8-man options because the quick-driven team just sort of pops off really, really well. Another thing to note, too, is if you see that Slasher team that I spoke about as my 5th option, because there's some really good strength characters like K-Dad and Odin on that team, the HP-cutting Dex-driven team will pretty much, like, destroy it. Because even if you lose 2 of your units, like, Akainu has a very, very good chance of just going first as well. Sometimes he can go before Wipe It and Roger, but if he doesn't and he dies, you still have stuff like Smoothie and Wipe It in the back to come in and help you actually decimate the rest of the team. As I mentioned, once you start picking off some of the pieces of the Slasher team, it crumbles very, very fast. The final team, the final tab here I have is talking about some other options you guys can put on the team. Izo and Kiku were a staple on the quick team for a very long time, but ideally now you want to build it out with driven units like Orochi works well, King works well, Kaido is a really, really good option if you're missing like one piece of the puzzle. However, Luffy's still a great PvP unit, Brook's okay, he's like a better version of Magellan now. You've got the powerhouse options in Katakuri, and then you've got Cracker as well if you wanted to just build out more powerhouse-centric. You've also got Black Maria for some powerhouse options, and then you have some very good PvP nuking options here with the Brogy monsters. Shiryu is another good option for the driven build. If you don't have something like Kanjuro, you can definitely use Shiryu there because he is a driven unit too. And then you have some free spirit options here too. If you're a newer player and you sort of picked up some of these units and you kind of want to build out this team, say you're missing something like these 2 Pirate Rumble rare recruits here, you have some options like Queen from the Treasure Map shop, you have the free-to-play Bellamy, or you have the free-to-play Ivankov as well. I wouldn't recommend really running them too much, but if you're a newer player watching this video, hopefully that helps you out there as well. As I mentioned though, the quick-driven team can do absolute bits. I have seen it take down stuff like Dex builds that don't rely on nerfing quick specifically. Obviously, in Rumble, Strength is meant to beat Dex, Dex beats Quick, and Quick beats Strength, and then Psi and Int are interchangeable. But, you do have to be careful if you are versing Dex teams, and I would highly recommend not fighting them, but this HP cutting, fixed damage-based, quick-driven team can take that team down as well, like I said. So if you want to run it as, a baity sort of defense team, and not have something like Smoothie, and then run, Wipe It on the bench, or even run Smoothie on the bench, and then sort of just, rely on not on your 8-man options, you could do some stuff there if you have the investment. But remember, all of this is sort of subject to change, and this is just going off sort of that mediocre investment. But if you see this team going around, you have some very good Dex options to take it down. Stuff like Yamato, Kizaru, Moria, CatDog, that is something you should definitely avoid. But as for other options, versing stuff like Sai can be quite scary as well, because Wano Law is still running around. Wano Law remains winning. He's very, very good in Rumble at taking down driven and powerhouse units. But if you don't see a Law on a Sai team, this team can actually work very, very well. Speaking of Psy, they are my third option as the third best team in the game. They are in my top 3 Psy, and if you wanted to say they're a bit higher for, like, flexibility reasons, I definitely can understand. But between them and Dex and Int, like, it's not even a competition between, like, quick and strength compared to the next 3 colors. Psy is very, very good, and stereotypically, the Psy team that I like to run is your Odin and Yamato combination, your Kuzan and your Enaru combination, and then Rebecca Toy Soldier in the middle. The downside I see with Psy right now is they have a very, very weak bench. And as you can see, I'm actually running the Int bench. This Int bench to me is actually very disgusting. It works very, very well. And with the combination of the Psy units at the front, you can actually do bits. The problem I do find with Psy is once you use your specials, sort of getting to that next stage of specials, they do struggle. They're kind of RNG reliant depending on the action bind of Odin, whether the Odin hits particular units, whether Yamato hits out the half stats on most of the teams. But the reason I have them at third is because they have very good ways to counter the slasher team, as well as the quick driven team that I just spoke about. But the team resides of Odin on the far left. He gives level 6 attack and HP to free spirits, and for the first 40 seconds, he gives a level 3 defense buff to Psy units. So you want to build out, obviously, Psy and free spirit mainly. A special does level 7 attack buff to free spirit for 20 seconds. He does 3.5 times his attack in a large sideways range, and then he has a 70% chance to action bind all enemies in a large sideways range as well. Combining that with Yamato on the far side, these are the 2 damage dealers of the team, and you kind of want to keep them alive. She'll apply level 5 attack buff to Psy, and when this unit does hit, limiting of 5, applies a level 2 attack buff to Psy. So every time she attacks, you get level 2 attack to your Psy units, and then her special has a 100% chance to halve stats in a medium radial range for 20 seconds, deals 5 times her attack to 2 units, and then applies level 10 attack up to crew members in a large radial range for 10 seconds. Obviously, if you can get that 100% halve stats to the entire team, it's actually disgusting. Downside to this is it is only in a medium radial range, and it's only for 20 seconds, which means if you miss or you whiff against the entire team and you only hit like one unit, there's like one unit that sort of comes out and the rest of the team's chilling at the back, you only halve stats the front unit, and then Yamato randomly hits 2 units in the back that have high defense. Yamato's not going to kill anything, and then Odin comes in. Odin works really, really well against more half stat units. You can board wipe there, but if you get that combination off, you half stats everyone, Odin comes in, hits everyone because he has such a big range, you can just board wipe the entire team. However, you do have some very, very good options after that. Enel pops his special off so frequently. He's on such a low cooldown at 17 seconds, and he does 1.1 times his attack to all enemies, gives a level 3 defense buff to Psy and a level 5 speed buff to Psy. So you start popping off your attacks very quickly, you start getting very defensive, plus because you get they're on the low cooldown, normally he'll pop off again, very similar to like what Kizaru can do. His ability gives level 5 defense to Psy, level 5 speed buff to Psy, and then he gives a level 5 CT down debuff to slashes for the first 40 seconds. So if you do see a lot of slashes on the teams, stuff like the Giants on the Int team, Pell and Dalton on the Dex team, or the slasher team themselves, this particular Enaru is so good with that. He partners up really, really well with this Kuzan, giving level 6 attack and speed buff to Quick and Psy teammates, and then applies level 3 defense buff to Quick and Psy as well. I think at level Limit Break, that's actually higher. I'll have to triple check that, but at his max special, at level Limit Break, he does 4,000 fixed damage, which is disgusting, to all enemies. He also inflicts level 5 defense and special CT debuff to strength and int enemies. And as I was saying, he's actually a level 7 attack and speed and level 5 defense at level Limit Break 5. So a massive buff to what you guys actually see there. His Rumble special does level 6 CT speed down and defense down and does 4,000 fixed damage. He's a fantastic Rumble unit at level Limit Break 5. And then you round out the team with the Pirate Rumble exclusive being Rebecca Toy Soldier. They have one of the best passives as a Pirate Rumble Rare Recruit, giving level 6 attack, 2 defense, and HP, level 5 HP up to Psy units. They deal 2 times their attack to 2 enemies, and then level 3 defense down to all enemies in a large radial range. And then they just target slashes for level 5 defense down. The combination of these 2 units just absolutely decimates slashers, whether they are a slasher team or they have a lot of slashes in their lineup. Finally, as you guys see here, we have the Int bench, which I'll talk about once we get to that team. But basically, the combination of Smoker and the Giants work incredibly well. The two giants just work amazingly at nerfing stuff like strikers, then Smoker with his special binding goes off. And as I mentioned, Psy's biggest weakness, in my opinion, is the fact that they have such a limited bench. But as you can see, the first team that I have them up against is the Slasher team. Now, Slashers against Rebecca Toy Soldier and Kuzan is basically a death wish. Like I said, you're nerfing level 5 CT, which directly affects Whitebeard Roger. And then you also lower their defense as well. It normally means your Odin and your Yamato are going to go first. You can pretty much bring down Whitebeard and Roger most times. If you don't and you lose 2 units, you have a very strong bench coming in. Because you can even put Smoker at the back there if you're versing the Slasher team. And then you have the 2 Giants come in, which just tandem very, very well together. They don't have too many issues with Slashers. Obviously, Slashers are RNG based. And they pop off super, super heavily against pretty much anything that is a 5-man team or less. Or 6-man team or less, I should say. So do be very careful if you are versing them. The reason I have the Psy team above the Quick Driven, though, is because they have access to this man right here. Wano Law remains winning because Quick Driven, Inch Driven Powerhouse, and Dex Powerhouse Driven are all going absolutely AWOL, and they have been for a very, very long time. With Law, you can bring Law in over Enel if you don't have too many slashes floating around. And then you can actually get a level 6 CT buff to Psy. And for the first 40 seconds, you give a level 6 CT guard and special down debuff to Driven and Powerhouse. And this gap of 12 CT is absolutely monstrous. He deals 2200 fixed damage to all enemies in a large radial range. And then he reduces Silence Paralysis action bind on the crew for 22 seconds, which can be quite nice as well. When you do see stuff like the Dex team, like this one right here, Wano Law helps out drastically. Now, if you see an 8-man team like this, I would not fight it. However, I did want to give some options and some ideas for you of what you do want to see if you do find a Dex team, and you do want to run something like your Psy team. Stuff like Kid, stuff like Pell, Dalton, Blackbeard, Sobermask, Donjin Jiao, Garp, Doflamingo. This particular team can take care of very, very well. But as I mentioned, you do start sort of scraping the barrel when you've popped your specials off for the first time. After you pop your specials off, the Psy team can get very finicky, and it can be very, very scary. So don't fight this team if they have lots of options. But if they're rocking like a 5 to 6-man team, and you obviously have an 8-man team, you already have the edge. But obviously, like I said, investments come into play here. Level 150 comes into play. Level Limit Break Expansion, Limit Break Plus, all that stuff comes into play with these units. Like Blackbeard, like Kid, like Doflamingo, all of them have very powerful level limit breaks, and if you do come up against them, you do need to be very, very careful. So if you saw something like this team at like a 6-man team, honestly, still very scary with Pell and Dalton in the front, but Wano Law is definitely a must for the fight. Next, you have that Quick Driven team that I did speak about, and this is a reason why I have Psy above them, because if Yamato and Odin go off, like they can easily halve stats like this whole team, drop this 18 defense down to 9, and then Odin just like board wipe, just say absolutely goodbye to Luffy, and his revive. But this particular team right here doesn't really stand too much of a chance because Law gives such a gap in your cooldowns. You're basically having a level 12 difference with dropping theirs by 6 and increasing yours by 6. So if you see the Quick Driven, even if it's got some crazy stuff on the bench, like stuff like this Whitebeard, you don't have to worry about either. If you see something like the Brogy, what are they called? The Broly monsters, these ones here, you're not really going to worry about them too because they're powerhouse units. Stuff like King, stuff like Kaido, stuff like Orochi, all of those legends, even Smoothie, they're all powerhouse driven units. So Law just has an absolute field day with them. But don't forget, this HP cutting shenanigans still can become clutch, and they still can do a lot of work if they have higher investments than you do. Finally, there is the Int-driven team. This Int-driven team, I would only fight with Psy if it is a 5 to 6-man team, because this team has so much halve stats going for it, especially if they run something like Yamato on here as well. You know what? I'm going to put her over here. If they have like Yamato on this team as well, like you can see, this is a 5-man team right now. If they do something with like Yamato right here, you're basically in for a really bad time because you have so much hard stats going with stuff like Uta, with Moria, and Yamato. But the Psy team with Wano Law obviously helps drastically when you are taking down the driven builds. Remember, as I mentioned, investments come into play. As for stuff like strength teams, as for stuff like fighter teams and stuff like that, there's a lot of fighter powerhouse units floating around. and Law works very, very well against them. But I did want to just sort of give a shout out to the quick driven as well as the int driven team and what Wano Law can do against them. Most of the time, I will run something like this, but stereotypically, Law does find his way into the lineup because there's so many driven and powerhouse characters. As for, like, GP and, what's it called? For, like, GP options and substitute options, Sai does have a plethora at their exposure. Remember, Roger is, like, one of the best GP leaders, and running him with Sai works exceptionally well because you can build out something like a slasher team with Whitebeard and Roger, and then you can use Roger on your sort of Sai-free spirit. Stuff like this Snake Man can work very well with guard and HP and attack. The Nami's not too bad once they fix that sort of bug because she gives level 7 speed up with her special, and she can give attack debuff to int, which works very, very well when you're coming up against like int driven with like her and One of Law. Bon Clay is not too bad with his guard, his crit percent, and then also his fixed damage. Straw Hat Crew work amazingly on defensive team. Verse Shanks can even go alright. Germa and Boa, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel now. But you also have stuff like Kizaru and Shiroshi, and then Nukas like Sanji and V1 Shanks at level limit break 5. Finally, you've got your PvP rare recruits, and honestly, like, all of these PvP rare recruits don't really work that well in the main lineup for Sai. Besides maybe Strusen on, like, a free spirit Sai team, and then, like, Rebecca Toy Soldier in the back, they don't work all that well. Now, Rebecca Toy Soldier has such a good passive that you just can't leave them out, but if you want to, you can easily use Strusen and then have Rebecca Toy Soldier as one of your nuking options. Lots of people like to use Smoothie because she can give CT buff when she comes in. She gives attack. Kogara and Nolan are an option for maybe like Whitebeard, Roger, GP teams, but other than that, I really like running this team right here, especially in Grand Party when you're running Whitebeard and Roger as your leader and you're using like Kuzen and Enel and Yamato as striker leads or striker units. They get such a big buff in GP that the Sai team is definitely my number 3 team. Moving on to number 2 now, and this might get a little bit controversial because I know a lot of people love this team, but number 2 goes to the Dex build. Now, Dex, before I dive in as the number 2 team, is the most versatile color by far. You have so many options with the Dex that you can run so many good teams, as they have a lot of really good options for versing their counterpart being quick, as well as just being very, very good as a staple team. Now, I do have the most success of just sort of testing a team against another team when I am running Dex. Now, the most stereotypical team that I would use looks a little bit like this. They have 2 of the best PvP rare recruits in the game, being Pell and Dalton. These 2 together work absolutely exceptionally well. Luffy is probably the in the top 3, probably the top 2 for me as best Pirate Rumble characters in the entire game. I think Whitebeard and Roger and Luffy are kind of neck and neck as the 2 best Pirate Rumble units. And then you've got Kid and his level limit break 5 as well as his 6+. You can run Cat Viper with this cheeky Fortnite Dogstorm strat. Doflamingo is by far the best nuking option in the game and can absolutely save matches for you, or you just plan on him coming in and you're just absolutely tearing shreds. For most of the teams that I will use, the most reliable team that I had been using before King's release, looked a little bit like this. Luffy is an absolute beast. He gives level 5 HP defense to Dex, level 5 defense buff to himself, and then he reduces a revive to Dex. So that means if any Dex unit dies, he will revive them once at 50% HP. He deals 2.5 times his attack to one enemy 3 times. He produces a counter stance for 20 seconds, and when HP is below 50 seconds, he gives 100% CT to one Dex unit with 100% or below CT charge. Absolutely phenomenal. You can easily put him in this middle slot here as well. That way you just get that 100% a lot quicker as well. I probably should do that. I didn't realize that you had to be below 50% to actually get that. Next, we've got, I'm going to talk about Kid. Next, Kid at level limit break 5 is an absolute demon. His rumble ability for Dex gives level 4 defense, level 7 HP, and after 40 seconds, he gives himself another level 4 defense as well. So, obviously, those stats are a little bit higher for level limit break 5. His special deals targets team for defense up level 6 instead of level 5, as you can see there. And then he targets enemies within a large horizontal range for attack of 2.75. Which is absolutely phenomenal. He's an absolute beast, great defensive unit, and then obviously with Dofi on the bench that buffs Driven, you can have him come in and really help out this Kid, or you can even run something like Blackbeard instead of Neko. Now, Neko is still very, very good for the team as well. He does level 6 speed buff to Dex, level 4 defense buff to Dex. When this unit does a critical hit up to 4 times, applies level 2 attack buff to Dex as well. And when you have a Dogstorm on the crew, he gives himself level 5 attack. Now, Dogstorm isn't really good, like the Legend Dogstorm. He's not very good on the Dex team anymore, unless you're versing quick. But there is this 20 cost Duke Dogstorm Fortnite unit, which will trigger this passive for you, which is very good, because it just basically acts like a Pirate Rumble Rare Recruit slot. And that way you can still have your 4 legends on the team, which are much better with your Kid, Luffy, and Doflamingo. As for your Dream Team Pirate Rumble duo, you have Pell and Dalton. Now, Dalton gives level 5 attack and defense to Dex, level 7 crit up to crew members, so the entire crew, then deals 3 times his attack to one enemy 3 times, applies level 7 crit up to Dex for 25 seconds, and level 10 speed down debuff to 3 quick enemies. Now, so if you're versing quick, Dalton's very good. His passive and his special is so good that I always just find him on the main lineup of Dex anyway. He's a powerhouse unit, so he gets more buffs from Pell, as Pell will give level 5 attack buff to powerhouse units, level 3 CT buff to powerhouse, so himself and Dalton, and then does level 5 HP and defense to Dex as well. He applies a level 6 HP buff to powerhouse units for 10 seconds on his special, and then does level 5 guard and defense buff to crew members in a medium radial range for 15 seconds, deals 2 times his attack to one enemy up to, with the highest attack, 4 times. So Pell will find the highest attack unit and do butt tons of damage 4 times just to him. And then he also does that crazy combination of guard and defense to your Dex allies. This is absolutely monstrous. That the defense and guard combination helps you tank so many shots, like the absolute disgustingness that comes from stuff like Utas and Yamatos and Odins and Straw Hat crews. You can just easily tank this. You do have to be very careful with this team when you are coming up against HP cutting options, or when you are versing stuff like what's it called? Like HP cutting options or fixed damage teams. The final piece to the puzzle that you would definitely need to run is Doflamingo. At level limit break 5, he gives Driven class teammates attack up level 6, and then Dex teammates speed level 6 and defense level 6. So again, Kid is a great unit for him to help out there, or something like Blackbeard as well. His special will do targets enemies within large range for attack times 2. When there's less than 60 seconds, he does attack times 1, and when the time is less than 45 seconds, he does attack times 1, and then when there's less than 30 seconds, he does attack times 1. So he does a large range of a 2 times attack, a 1 times attack, a 1 times attack, and another 1 times attack. In the last 30 seconds, if this man pops his special off, be very careful, because he can pretty much just take you out. Finally, we've got our Sobermask. He's another powerhouse character for Pell. He's a great nuking option at level 5 attack and speed to Dex. He does nerf quick a little bit, but he does 2 times his attack to all enemies in a medium to sideways range. For the last 40 seconds, he does another 2 times attack, which works quite nicely. So Dex, very, very versatile, and we'll talk about that in a second, because you can actually run them obviously very well against their quick counterpart. But this is the stereotypical Dex team that I like to run. It works amazingly well, even if you go up against something like Law in a 5-man team, and this sort of free spirit-centric build that can rock around with something like Rebecca Toy Soldier nerfing slashes. This team still has no issues taking this down. Even with Law nerfing stuff like Kid, and then your slash and nerfing on defense of Pell and Dalton, Luffy is just so good that you can just easily just tank out that first round, and then you just start pumping out specials yourself. Even with Straw Hat crew and taking the massive damage they can do, you are going to be in good stead. And if you do come up against some other builds that have more like fighters or quick units, you will be absolutely fine too. Another very, very good build, or Dex has very good versatility too, is when you are fighting quick. So I've put 2 teams together here with some other options that you can verse quick with, whether it's this crazy HP cutting team, which, by the way, you do have to be very, very careful of as the best sort of quick team in the game. But if they don't have this kind of powerful lineup, you can easily just, like, not use what you see here. But I do want to highlight some options for you. Kizaru is very, very good because he can give level 5 speed down to quick. The new Yamato has a great level 3 CT debuff to quick and level 5 defense down, which is absolutely phenomenal at taking them down. She's probably your best option alongside something like Moria, because he's a PvP rare recruit, giving level 5 attack buff to himself, but also giving level 2... with his special, he gives level 5 defense down, very similar to like Rebecca Toy Soldier. And then obviously Dalton can work quite well as well if you want to take Pell off the team and bring Dalton into the front line. This works fantastically. Other very good options you have is the cat-dog combination, as I mentioned. The cat-dog combination only really works if you are versing quick, so just be mindful of that. But also, this Blackbeard is very, very good because he can actually give a level 4 defense down debuff to strength and quick, as well as doing, it's like 40% HP cut and a 2.5k fixed damage to strength and quick as well. This Blackbeard works amazingly well if you are doing some other shenanigans. I think that's pretty much the same team, right? Oh, no, it's not. If you're doing some shenanigans against some, like, strength fighter teams and stuff like that, you can easily bring him into the main lineup here, against stuff like fighters and whatnot. And then you can do some really, really cool stuff, with some HP cutting and... Where is he? Some HP cuts as well as the fixed damage. And then with Doflamingo, he's also going to buff him there. And then you can just run something like King on the bench, which is absolutely gross. Like, it's actually gross what King can do. So you can do some really cool stuff like that. Finally, this Psy team is one that you do want to be wary of, but you can actually take it down very easily with Dex. Even if Wano Law's there, you just need to sort of take out some of those options like Kid and Blackbeard and replace him with stuff like Kizaru for the crazy amount of defense, and then like Cat Viper. He actually works insanely well, even if you don't have a Dogstorm on the team. So be mindful of that. Like I said, Dex has the most versatility. Even against strength, it does not struggle. You do need to be careful of that sort of boa build that I was talking about earlier. But the big one that I would be careful of is like Ints driven, because like they just stall you out. Psy with Wano Law is a problem, so be very careful there. But basically everything else besides Dex mirror matches, this team will absolutely find no issues with whatsoever. Well, this team, I guess, finds no issues with whatsoever. For other options on the team, you can do some like fightery builds with like Garp, and this this Chinjiao, the drill, is actually really, really good. Fantastic Pirate Rumble rare recruit. You can do some really cool stuff with fighter teams there because Luffy's so powerful. You've got Jinbei, he's another fighter option. You've also got Lucci, great fighter option. You've got Zoro as a great nuking character. Brook works great in Grand Party for like Dex slasher teams. Queen is another really good driven powerhouse character to get buffed by Doflamingo if you wanted to bring him into the front line. That's another option. You can actually just bring this Doflamingo into this front line here. And it works quite nicely because Doflamingo will actually be your damage dealer. And if you have so much defense and you know you're not worried about the opposition, Doflamingo can do so much damage as well. As for other options, Rayleigh at level limit break 5 is really good. Pirate Rumble rare recruits, you don't have too many other options besides like Pell and Dalton. But if you want to run like a more driven-centric team, this Cavendish is an option for you. And then finally, you've got stuff like the 5+s of Brook and Odin and Roger. You've got the Treasure Map Komurasaki and like Pirate Rumble Bardo. I wouldn't really recommend these free-to-play characters here, but Dex has just so many options. And if you do want to try and run like Dex slashes in GP with like Roger, I did want to sort of mention some of these characters like the Goldie Roger, the Komura, no, not the Komurasaki, the Odin, this Brook. They can be options for you as their slashes. Plus, you've also got this Zoro as well. Because remember, you can do like a Dex slasher build with like Brook and Zoro and Cat Dog, and then just like fill it out with stuff like Luffy and whatnot as well. But Dex, definitely the most versatile, has the most options. As a color, I think it's the best color in PvP, but as a team, I don't think it is the best team in the game. But if you wanted to argue that it was against me and say that it's definitely better than the next team that you see, then I'll understand why, but just wait and hear what I have to say about it. And the final team, the number one team that I do believe going around in Pirate Rumble at the moment is the int-driven team with this man right here, Fujitora. Now, yes, the team does need to look like this for it to be the best team in the game because it has so much going for it, and we'll go over that in a second. However, if you are missing one piece to this puzzle, this is where I believe Dex to be the best sort of team in the game because it has more versatility, it has more flexibility if you are missing a unit. But if you can build out this team right here, you're pretty much in good stead for the best GP and Pirate Rumble team in the entire game. As I mentioned, Dex does give it a very good run for its money. And as you can see, this Dex team right here, besides maybe something like you need to go. Dogstorm, just like don't run Dogstorm anymore. You want to run this kid. But even if you see something like this team right here, the int-driven team with Fujitora will actually stand up against it. And the only time I've really lost, it's not reliable, because I do win against it, but I also lose against it, is I'd get timed out. Like, I run out of time. Like, Doflamingo will be left with, like, half HP, and I'll be, like, still fully stacked. And then the time will just run out. But in GP, that counts as a win. And with GP stats extra with, like, your leader and stuff, this team just stereotypically claps it every day of the week. Because your GP leader would normally boost that, where the Dex doesn't really rock under a really strong GP leader, besides maybe this actual Luffy. But we'll talk about that a little at a later date. As for the team, it looks a little bit like this. We have Int-driven Kid as our first unit. He gives level 5 HP defense buff to Int characters, and he also does a level 2 attack buff to Driven whenever this unit does a hit limiting of 3. So you can give level 6 attack to your Driven teammates. His special does level 5 attack buff to the crew in a medium radial range. Deals 3.2 times attack to damage to all enemies in a large sideways range. 100% chance to silence Psy in a large range as well. And then level 8 attack down to Psy in a large sideways range as well, which is very, very powerful. His counterpart on the other side is Moria. He is a level 5 HP buff to Int, level 3 defense buff to Int, and for the first 30 seconds gives level 3 CT to himself. And deals 1,700 fixed damage to all enemies in a large radial range, and then does a 100% chance to halve 3 enemies. So he'll just automatically pick 3 units and halve their stats, which is so valuable because he has level 3 CT speed to himself, which means he will usually be popping off first. Sometimes you can get like some knockback, or like your Fuji, like you can get like nerfed with like Wano Law and stuff like that. But stereotypically, like, this team does not slow down with its pace, and you will be okay even if Moria doesn't pop off first. Uta and Blackbeard are on your insides. Blackbeard does level 5 attack and HP to Int, but then also does level 5 speed and defense to Powerhouse units, which this whole team actually is, except for Kid. That's why Kid is on the outside. Blackbeard will also do a level 5 defense debuff to all enemies in a large sideways range for 15 seconds. He deals 2 times his attack in damage to all enemies in a large sideways range. He just does absolutely phenomenal damage. He lowers defense, which means Uta and stuff does more damage. And then if you, on top of that, give halve stats, like if you have level 10 defense and you reduce it by level 5 and then you halve that, I think it rounds up to 3, but it's a massive, massive difference than having something like just 5 with the halve stat buff, debuff. Uta on the other side gives level 6 HP and attack to Driven units, which this whole team is. And then when she does a hit, limiting at 4, she does level 2 attack and CT speed to herself. So every time she attacks, she gives herself more CT speed, and this level 2 goes up very, very fast. Her special does a 100% chance to halve attack and speed of all enemies in a large radial range for 20 seconds, and then inflicts level 1 CT down debuff to all enemies in that same range, dealing 4 times her attack to all enemies in the large radial range too. She does so much damage, and after popping off after Moria and lowering the defense and halving those stats, she can do so much damage. Fuji is an absolute demon. We spoke about him on the quick driven team. His guard and his defense up is so powerful. He does nice damage, and even against something like the Dex team, in GP especially, he just doesn't take damage, even though he's not getting buffed from all of these Int characters and just the Driven and Powerhouse buffs from stuff like Uta and Kid and Blackbeard. He's a fantastic character. He gives himself level 5 CT speed, so you see his special very, very quickly, and getting that defense and guard to your entire team works insanely well. Not only that, but his passive gives level 6 defense to Driven as well, which is super, super nice. As for your bench, this bench is probably the most powerful in the entire game, and even if you get very unlucky against like a Sai Yamato build, you get like all your characters half stats. Odin comes in, blows away your team. You lose 3 characters and you have these 3 coming in, or you verse like Whitebeard and Roger and they take out 2, and then you have like your 2 giants come in. This is just the most superb a bench could be. You have Smoker, who is a Driven character, giving level 7 attack buff to Int. Inflicts level 10 accuracy down debuff to all enemies, which means their regular attacks have a very high chance of just missing. He deals 2 times his attack in a large forward range, which hits a lot of enemies, and has a 100% chance to silence 2 enemies for 20 seconds. Special binding an enemy for 20 seconds is so powerful. It's so much damage, and normally 90% of the time he comes in with his special, and then he just special binds a unit, and then like 2 units, and like Straw Hat Crew and Yamato, Wano Law. All of those crazy characters can be special minded. Doflamingo, like, it absolutely tears shreds on teams. It also what makes Don Jinjiao so good too. Finally, you've got the combination of the giants. Dory will give level 6 crit and guard to Int, and if you have Brogy on the crew, he's a level 6 attack down to Strikers. He does level 7 attack speed and recovery to Int. If you have the Brogy on the crew, he's a 2x attack to all enemies in a sideways range. And when Brogy's on the crew, he has a 100% chance to silence 2 enemies, or within 100% or exactly CT of 10 seconds. So if they have 100% CT, he will special bind them for 10 seconds. It's actually disgusting. Brogy, though, does so much damage, and he's probably better of the two. That's why I normally have him in the front. He applies level 6 HP and speed to Int, and then when you do damage up to 4 times, he gives level 2 attack to Int. When Dory's on the crew, he has level 5 defense down to Strikers, which works great against stuff like Yamatos, against like kids, all of those types of units as well. He deals 3.5 times his attack to all enemies in a large sideways range, and for the last 60 seconds, he does 1.5 times damage to all enemies in another sideways range. And then when Dory's on the crew, he does level 10 attack and defense down to Psy. Absolutely disgusting special. Very, very powerful bench, very, very powerful team, and even against this Dex team, they do hold their own insanely well. The only thing I will say is it's not reliable to fight the Dex team, especially if it has like a full bench as well. If you see like these bench units like flopping around as well, like Sobermask, and let's just say hypothetically we have the Dogstorm unit on there as well, just this little fake Dogstorm unit, and you see this, I wouldn't fight it because you'll have a higher chance of being timed out. But in GP, this team has no issues just walling the crap out of Dex, especially if you have something like Whitebeard Roger as your leader or like Top Musiker as your leader. Like, it just has no issues whatsoever, and it's a big reason why I think this particular team, not Int per se, this particular team is the best team in the entire game. Next, we kind of have the sort of quick-driven team. Like, this team just has no issues coming up against it. Even if you see the HP cutting shenanigans and the fixed damage shenanigans, you have so much damage output that after these guys go, because they have such low HP, you have way more damage output to just take them down. And even if they do take out some of your units, your bench comes in and you're just absolutely hunky-dory from there. Finally, we have this sort of side build that you do need to be careful of, especially with the free spirits running around of stuff like Straw Hat Crew. If Yamato halves stats and then Straw Hat Crew pops off, as well as Odin and just kills units, you are going to be in for a scary time. But like I said, your bench is so strong that even losing units, even if it's Fuji, it doesn't matter because you just have such a powerful bench coming in. I would highly recommend trying to avoid Wano Law, but even if you find teams like this, you are going to be fine. Stuff like Strength, stuff like Fighters, stuff like Shooters, like none of them struggle, like none of them compare to this particular team because you have so much half stats on this team. If you don't have Blackbeard, you could try Yamato for some more half stat shenanigans, but I just find this year's Blackbeard to be just so much better because he's absolutely monstrous passive, and the fact you are running a lot of powerhouse characters anyway. So if you do see Sai, obviously you don't have to worry too much because you have Kid, but Int does have some flexibility as well. If you come up against like a full Sai team, you do have your Rogue as well, and then you can bring Dory in the front. This Big Mom is a really, really good option as well. Or you can bring this Om into your front line, right where Big Mom is, and then run something like Yamato on the first line bench. The combination of Uta and Moria are an absolute must if you are running Int. But like I said, this particular team right here, I do believe is the best team in the game. However, the Dex team, like especially this one that you see right here, the one that stereotypically floats around, is honestly so close to it that it's almost incomparable because the two of them sort of chop and change depending on the rules. At the moment, Fighters are getting boosted, so Luffy gets an absolute monstrous buff. Strikers are getting boosted. No, Shooters are, never mind. So you do have to be careful of the rules as well. But if you do want to run Int, you do have some options here. You have the new Kaido, you have the new Big Mom, you have 6+ Blackbeard, Yamato, Katakuri. This Doflamingo is amazing for driven teams. You have some Storly options with stuff like Reiju. Marco is great for healing. You have some really good PvP rare recruits, like I said, Om and Jozu, and Oz is kind of whatever, but like he's an option. This Sengoku, this free-to-play Sengoku, if you guys have him, he's very, very good for defensive teams, especially if you put him up with stuff like Perona and Pudding and Reiju. They are very, very good options. And then finally, you have the GOAT rare recruit in Enel. If you are below 6 units, I think it is, he is 30 cost, but if you're below 6 units, he has a very, very good passive. So you can have him coming off the bench as your kind of like 7th option. That way you know you've lost a unit and you're going to have 6, so the passive activates. So as it stands right out of this moment, as of the 12th of the 1st, 2023, I do believe this is the best Pirate Rumble team in the entire game. But if you look directly above it, you do have a team that is very, very close to it. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you think that this int-driven team is the best team in the game? If you haven't seen what it does, hopefully I've had some like clips playing on the left-hand side for you guys as well of these teams in action. But if you guys haven't seen what this team does, make sure to come over to the streams when we're doing some PvP content, and I will show you how it operates. But if you guys think that the Dex team is disgusting and it still remains at the top as the best team in the game, I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it down below as well. Don't forget to belt the like button for me. Hit the big red subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Hit the join button if you want to be an extra chat. And don't forget to hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of the fun. Most importantly, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Later!